I'm gonna need to hold off on Power Rangers jokes the entire damn game, aren't I? Oh, no. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Shinobi for the Game Gear, otherwise known as you can see, the GG Shinobi. No guesses as to what that's short for. This is a bit of a different Shinobi game from the outset because we actively have a stage select this time around. And our goal is to beat the boss at the end of every stage and liberate one of the other colored Shinobis from the boss fight. Starting off, you're more or less Revenge of the Shinobi Joe Musashi, but you don't have shurikens, you're just close range attacks. By and large, though, the game plays like you're used to at this point. Button 2, I think it is jump. Button 1's attack. Does start things. Boxes are hidden on every single stage that contain either health ups, 1-ups, bombs to try and trap you, things of that nature. There are extra bonuses to exploring the stages this time around, though, so we'll get into that in a few moments. The important thing to note is that make sure you grab every single one of those you can. That was a tech point. By and large, that's the ninjutsu for this game, but the ninjutsu works a little bit differently, period, in this one. Every single shinobi has a different one that uses one tech point for the most part, barring one particular shinobi, and you're going to want as many of those as you can get for the final level, as it's all limited this time around. It's not based off whether or not you have one during your life or not. It is rough. Honestly, by and large, I would say the two Game Gear Shinobi games are the easiest games in the series behind Shadow Dancer for Genesis. But there are still points where if you're a bit too willy-nilly with how aggressive you're being with certain attack types, you will run out of opportunities to do things. With that said, this game can also potentially be one of the harder Shinobi games due to one factor. If you don't explore the stages, your max health is forever 4. And if I'm recalling correctly, most things in the game still only do 1 damage, but I think there's at least 1 or 2 attacks in the game, barring obviously instant death traps, that do 2+. So you're gonna want to grab as many health ups as you can, and there's one hidden in every single one of the main 4 stages. With that said, it's usually pretty hidden, so you're gonna need to look around a bit. I'm getting everything in this game just because, well, there's not much to show off otherwise, isn't there? It's not like going out of your way for them really takes that much longer anyway. The stages are, by and large, more explorative than the ones we've done in the series thus far, but not by much. Every stage is still broken up into 2 or 3 sections, with its own little hazards thrown in to mix things up on a stage-per-stage basis. I'll go more into what the plot is in the next stage after I finish explaining other things. For the first stage's health up, we want to come over here on top of this crane. There it is. Health ups are stylized as cubes for some reason. I don't entirely understand why, but I'll take it. Either way, over here to the left, we're going to find ourselves in our first boss fight against a helicopter on top of a plane. The helicopter only has 1 attack, to swipe into you in about 2 or 3 different ways, be it from the left to the right, sometimes it tries to do it twice in a row to trick you, or just going left to right, period. The main attack of this boss fight, outside of touch damage, is the bomb enemies coming out from the side of the plane. With that said, as long as you keep moving, they're seldom gonna hit you. Pink awoke from the spell. Let's go help the other guys. I guess, technically speaking, all the other shinobi are actually under spells, not being rescued. It's weird. With that said, we're now going to be heading into what is my preference for the next stage, the harbor. The main reason I'm taking on the stages in the order I am, as by and large, the abilities of one shinobi allow you to grab the health extension in another stage. For instance, Joe doesn't have much going on besides his short-range attacks. His ninjutsu can only destroy certain blocks, while Pink can throw bombs. And the bombs are interesting as they can do technically twice as much damage if you place them at the bottom of an enemy's hitbox, so I forget if that's in this game or Game Gear Shinobi 2. Pink also has a couple of other abilities, namely their ninjutsu allows you to do miscellaneous tasks. By and large, it only really comes in handy in the final stage. It can do numerous things such as lowering water, stunning enemies, and probably like 1 or 2 other things that aren't as important. Pink's main ability, though, outside of those, is one that takes a little bit of getting used to in terms of its usage. In that, and I'm showing it off in, I think, the next screen in particular. If you jump into a ceiling with Pink and hold up and the jump button, you will cling to whatever ceiling you want to. And this is helpful because it allows you to not only avoid certain hazards, of course, it also just straight up allows you to ignore certain level design. With that said, you will need to use this at certain points because they want you to learn what every single Shinobi does. Speaking of what the Shinobi do, how about we take a look at that plot synopsis from the manual, because the game certainly ain't telling us shit. Shinobi, the mission. Rumors of terror and destruction have made their way to Ninja Valley. The master of the Oboro School of Shinobi sent his best students to investigate the horrible tales coming from the suburban areas. They returned with news of a powerful dark force that has established a base within Neo City. The master knows that only a warrior trained in the arts of ninjutsu can stand against this type of menace. One by one, his greatest pupils, blue, green, pink, and yellow, all named for the colors of their sashes, have entered Neo City to locate and destroy the source of evil. Ninja Valley has lost contact with each of them. All are believed to be captured. By the way, in this room, hug the top of the wall, not only to get an extra life eventually, but we're going to be coming up on the health extension for the stage in a moment. This is why you want to bring Pink in here, because it's the only way you can get this particular health extension from my knowledge. I think you can technically also bring in the green Shinobi when you get them later on, but I prefer to bring in Pink because, yeah. Either way, it is now up to you, Joe Musashi, the Red Shinobi, to carry through this dire mission. The master asks you, the oldest and strongest of his ninja disciples, to use your special skills in the art of ninjutsu to free your fellow Shinobis, and with the addition of their abilities, destroy the City of Fear. The ultimate challenge awaits for you in this epic for the Sega Game Gear. Action epic for the Sega Game Gear. Whoa! I mean, now that I think about it, I guess there probably weren't too many, like, straight-up well-done action platformers on the handheld that I can think of. Like, there's these two games. Ninja Gaiden was on Master System. That wasn't on Shinobi on Game Gear from memory. The Sonic games, and that's all I can think of offhand. I guess technically Sylvan Tale, but that wasn't a platformer. Either way, the boss of this stage is this robot, which only really has two attacks. It's either going to try and poke you with its chain ball arm, with either a low one you're going to want to jump onto to reach the weak spot, which is the ninja and back, or a high one to try and get you off of it, after which usually the ninja will lower the head of the robot and fire a charge beam across. With that said, it's very easy to use a damage boost here to stay on top of the robot longer than you're technically meant to and take this boss out just super quickly. Yellow woke from the spell. Let's go help the other guys. Yellow is a little bit of an odd ninja, but we'll get into that into a moment, because first off, let's talk about the next stage, which is easily the stage that I tear apart the most, the Valley. Now, very early on in the Valley, a gimmick is going to become clear. We have a river. Falling in that, I believe, is instant kill, unless you're Yellow, because Yellow is also Jesus, because he can walk on water. Yellow's main attack is a charge shot from Mega Man, more or less. You can just press the button to fire a weak projectile out, but if you hold it for a second, you fire out the attack from the boss fight, which does, I think, 2 more damage, maybe 1 more damage, I'm not quite sure. And having Yellow for this stage not only allows you to get the health extension super easily, it also allows you to completely ignore the hazard of this first half of the stage, which is jumping on the logs and off into the platforms in the background to get to the door at the end of it. As you would figure, having someone who can walk on water makes the first half of this stage a complete and utter joke. Honestly, I think I've only done that stage without Yellow maybe once. The latter half of the stage is a different ordeal entirely, though, as we have a cave here, and there's a really odd darkness gimmick to this cave, where whenever you see this little checkboard pattern, this screen darkens when you walk into it. Honestly, it actually doesn't impact your playing too much at all, unless you're playing this on an actual Game Gear, where you probably are able to see so little, it's probably super painful, as the enemies rolling around are only vulnerable some of the time, because they're these little spike ball guys that just roll up and try to run into as their main attack, but sometimes they stop in front of you and you can just have open season. Either way, this is how you use ninjutsu in the game. You switch to the ninja in question, and then you just straight up use it from the menu like that. I should mention, I believe Yellow's ninjutsu is one that was also in Revenge of the Shinobi. Ikazuchi, I want to say it was called. It's the lightning bolt one that just turns you temporarily invincible. With that said, I think you can only use it while you have Yellow equipped, so to speak. So you're only going to be able to really make good use of that in places where you are, standing in water, wherever that might happen. And I should note, you do want to get used to what every single Shinobi can do, as we're going to need to know that for the final stage. Thankfully, if you actually had a copy of this, the manual does state exactly what every Shinobi does in ways you can use it. For instance, I believe... yeah, here it is. Special feat for Yellow. Walks on water. Alright, so the stage of the boss of the valley is a ninja with a scythe who jumps from the waterfall. Main strategy, stand on the right side of this platform, fire left whenever it shows up, and you're golden. You'll never get touched. Honestly, again, kind of a joke. The bosses in this game, barring maybe the final boss, aren't too hard. Blue awoke from the spell. Let's go help the other guys. Blue is probably my least favorite ninja in the game, as his attack is a little bit awkward. His attack is to throw a chain with hook forward. If it hits enemies, it does damage. With that said, it also comes in handy for this stage in order to reach the health extension, as Blue's secondary ability is directly linked to his attack. There are pegs in the background sometimes that you can use as hook points for Blue's attack to grapple across certain ravines or not fall into certain bottomless pits. With that said, the game is both a little generous and a little not. As long as the hook is extended and touches the peg, you're gonna hook onto it. With that said, the hitbox on it is also a little bit misleading, in that where the hook is isn't exactly, I feel, where the hitbox itself is. So as long as you're close enough, you'll be fine. Just make sure you learn where it is in a place where you're safe and won't die. Or where the hitbox is, rather, is in a place... yeah. Make sure you learn where the hitbox is in a place where you are safe and thus won't lose lives cheaply. And yet, we're going to need to know how to use Blue real well, because, again, that final stage, you need every single one of the Shinobi's abilities pretty much mastered. Which, I get, by and large, you want to master your abilities as a player by the final stage, at least to an extent, but when we get to the Neo City stage, next part, yeah, I'll go over my rants about how I feel they've been a bit too far with it then. Blue is also super useful for this stage, as they allow me to show off the grapple, not only through the trees in the first half, but through that. There are cases in this stage where it just acts as a straight-up shortcut around certain level design. I do appreciate that the game more or less rewards different play styles as we go. As, technically speaking, I believe you could also have gotten the health extension in this stage with the Green Shinobi as well. So you can go through a couple of different stage orders and still be able to beat the game with every health extension in hand. It's just that there's also a little bit of a pain in the ass thing from my memory in that I don't think you can revisit stages in this game. Don't quote me on that. I know you can in the second Game Gear Shinobi game. But since I usually have everything done by the end of the fourth stage anyway, being automatically thrown into Neo City like we're going to be feels like much less of a problem than it probably should be, honestly. Thankfully, despite them still placing bombs as traps in certain boxes, this is probably the game where they are at their least effective, because the explosions on the bombs in the boxes are pitifully small, to the point of me wondering what the goddamn point is. As in every game that's had bombs that acted as hazards thus far we've played, their explosions were generally large enough to cause a problem. They did huge damage. I think not only are the explosions small in this, I don't think they do any more damage than any of the other main hazards we've seen in the game thus far. It's kind of weird. Mind you, one could say for a Shinobi game that the Game Gear duology is kind of weird to begin with, given they have more of a Mega Man meets Metroid feel with not only how their level design works, but the fact there's a stage select, period. And I think there's something valid to that, but I appreciate these games for being as different as they are because it's a more unique experience than just straight up porting a game. Alright, boss at this stage is a face that warps into 3 ninjas. Blue is super effective for this fight because his chain will penetrate each of the 3 ninjas and do damage to each of them because I think every single one of them has 3 health. As you can see, I melted them. Green awoke from the spell. Neo City, here we come. Alright, but with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2 of the Game Gear Shinobi, the end of the Game Gear Shinobi. See you guys then.